Huzzah and good day, my wonderful students. Today we look at the early westward expansion in U.S. history. Headed west. The first census in the United States was in 1790, and the population was approximately 4 million people. Now, most of those people lived between the Appalachian Mountains and the Atlantic Ocean, in the east, but there were more people who were beginning to want to move west. Daniel Boone was a pioneer who explored a Native American trail called the Warrior's Path in 1769. Boone spent 2 years exploring, going through a break in the mountains called the Cumberland Gap into what would become Kentucky. In 1775, Boone formed a group with 30 skilled foresters to make the trail easier to cross. Now, Boone's crew widened the Warrior's Path and cleared rocks from the Cumberland Gap. They cut down trees in Kentucky, and they created what's called the Wilderness Road. This became the main southern road from the eastern states to the west, and more than 100,000 people traveled it between 1775 and 1790. Private companies began to build turnpikes or toll roads. Some roads had a bed of crushed stone, others were logs laid side by side called corduroy roads. Ohio became a state in 1803 and asked Congress to build a road to connect it to the east. Congress approved funding, but argued for 5 years over where to build the road. Construction began in 1811, but that was put on hold because of the War of 1812. Finally, the first section of the road from Maryland to Wheeling in what is today West Virginia opened in 1818. Now, at this time in history, river travel was more comfortable and could carry larger amounts of cargo than road travel. However, most goods needed to travel in an east-west direction, while most of the rivers flowed in a north-south direction. Also, moving upriver was slow work against the current. In the late 1700s, steam engines were being used to power boats, but they did not yet have enough power to overcome strong currents. In 1802, Robert Fulton was hired to build a steamboat with a powerful engine to carry cargo and passengers up the Hudson River from New York City to Albany. In 1807, his steamboat, the Clermont, made the 150-mile trip in 32 hours, much faster than the 4-day trip by sailboat. Fulton's ship was relatively comfortable, providing a smooth ride with sleeping compartments below decks. Soon, steamboats were on many rivers, moving goods and people more quickly and cheaply than ever before. River cities such as Cincinnati and St. Louis grew along with the trade, and by 1850, 700 steamboats were moving along U.S. rivers. New waterways. Now, steamboats improved transportation on the major rivers, but there were still none that ran between east and west. So to solve this, DeWitt Clinton of New York developed the idea of building a canal to connect the Great Lakes with New York City. The Erie Canal, as it was called, stretched for 363 miles and contained separate compartments or locks to raise and lower the water levels to move the boats up and down hills. Now, building the canal was a dangerous task and took thousands of workers, many of them Irish immigrants. After 8 years and many deaths from disease and accidents, the Erie Canal opened on October 26, 1825. During its construction, many people ridiculed the project as DeWitt's Ditch, but after it was done, people celebrated its opening. Steamboats were not allowed on the canal at first because their powerful engines could destroy the earthen banks of the canal. Teams of horses and mules instead pulled the boats along the canal, which was still faster than using a wagon to haul the goods. So you'd have the boat inside the canal itself and a team of horses and mules on land attached to the boat by ropes, and they would pull it upriver that way. Now, in the 1840s, the walls of the canal were strengthened and the steam tugboats were put into place to pull the barges. The success of the Erie Canal inspired other regions to build canals of their own. And by 1850, there were more than 3,600 miles of canals in the United States. By 1821, Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Mississippi, Alabama, and Missouri had all become states. In 1800, only 387,000 white settlers lived west of the Appalachian Mountains, and by 1820, there were more than 2.4 million of them, a massive change in a short period of time. Early pioneer communities settled along major rivers to provide shipping to markets. Canal building expanded the areas of settlement as more people could live in different regions. Western families would gather for social events like sports or quilting and sewing parties, as well as corn huskings. As people moved west, so did American culture and their way of life. And I hope you enjoyed this lesson.